All right, good morning, good evening, good night. That's usually how I start my videos. We are back at the Not So Fashion Talk Show, and today I'm gonna have I have a guest called Renee McKenna, right?
McKenna, yep.
She wrote the book Lies and Demons, and I think we share. I mean, I came to you on Instagram, to be honest, like intuitively, because one of your drawings caught my attention of like, that's very punk. And then I start following you. I start realizing that we had a lot of things in common in a way of like, I did a lot of things that it's in your book. I think I didn't have a time to read it, but I did intuitively some of the ideas that I already caught it. And I'm very interested to talk to you about inner child and all of that good stuff and depression, because I suffer from it. And I actually told my brother today, I hope I'm not a demon because I was like, I don't know what to expect, but I really want to know a little bit more about you, and feel free to introduce yourself. And
okay, so my name is, you want me to start to say a little bit about, because we actually, this is cold, it's so fun, and I think I felt the same way. I looked at your stuff and, you know, feel this like connection. I feel like we've come to the same kind of healing work, maybe in different paths, but with different life experience. But I love these kind of connections, and I find them a lot actually on Instagram. It's been really exciting for me to connect deeply with people who are doing really profound personal growth work and trying to bring it out to other people. And I gotta put a not disturb. Nope, I don't want to do that. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place now. How do I put my do not disturb?
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Here it is. Okay, now I'm on do not disturb, and I'll come back. There. So for myself, I am a therapist and shamanic healer for the last 20 years. I'm also a recovering addict, and I like to say ex-crazy person. I did enough of my own therapy. Eventually, I just said, fuck it, and became a therapist. To try to, yeah, I say that jokingly, but really, I mean, for me, my life work now is to pass on to other people the healing and transformation that I've experienced in my own life. I come from a lot of dysfunction. I was really dysfunctional in pretty much every area of my life, physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually, socially, and had a lot of potential, but I wasn't able to bring that potential out into the, because I had all this unresolved emotional stuff that just totally overwhelmed me on a daily basis. And I had a lot of really dysfunctional coping skills to try to get through every day, from drugs and alcohol, and all kinds of dysfunction about depression and anxiety, and which I understand today that all that stuff is my sister trying to find balance from an unbalanced place, right? And so one of the first, so at first I had to get clean from drugs and alcohol because nothing else could happen for me until that really profound medication way that I was coping with my life was out of the way. Everybody's different, right? But that was what happened for me. And then there was all these feelings that I had been trying to medicate for years and years, and or pressing down with depression. And I understand, I actually think the word depression is very, very accurate, because it is the pressing down of our self, really, with layers and layers and layers, right? And you know, in peeling away those layers so that our authentic self can reveal itself in the world is the work of our own path of joy and fulfillment, ultimately, right? So, and one of the first things that happened for me in my personal growth journey was actually this spontaneous experience, inner child work that I had. I tell this story a lot because it's what happened. There was a man, Bradshaw, who kind of introduced inner child in psychology in the 80s. And at that point, I happened to see him doing a workshop on TV, and he had people come up on stage and in the audience, and he talked to them about connecting with their child self and bringing their adult self to this child part of themselves, talking to that child. And it was like, I had never seen anything like it. It was so vulnerable. It was so like soul level, people were crying and they, it was just like, I just had never seen that, anything like that. And not long after that, I went to visit my mother. This is actually the story in the opening of my book. I went to see my mother, which was always a painful experience at that point. And I left there all screwed up like I usually did after I would go to see my mother. And but I wasn't netting myself anymore. I didn't go to the bar. I didn't have any cocaine or pot. And I sat in my car and I started to cry. I had been really disconnected from my feelings. I identified very masculine in a way. I was a tough guy. I didn't have feelings. And I allowed myself to cry. And spontaneously, I had this experience of like an image of myself as this like wounded, battered child that was like in a closet. And I went to get her out of the closet. And she was terrified of me, that my own self, my own authentic self, my vulnerable self was terrified of me because I had abused myself so much. I was at war with myself inside myself and had a lot of self-hatred and thought vulnerability was the way of weakness. I wanted to actually like kill my own vulnerability because I thought if I could be invulnerable, then I wouldn't be afraid anymore. And when I saw the devastation that I had wreaked upon my own emotional self and how tired and neglected, they were like in rags and starving to death. It really, it changed my life. And it took, there was a lot of things that happened, like become a therapist the next day, there was a long period of healing, different kinds of therapy work and lots of recovery work and lots of spiritual work. And then ultimately through a bunch of serendipities, I ended up, at the feet of a spiritual teacher who did work that included inner child work and shamanic healing, which is another aspect of connecting with the larger consciousness system or our own higher self or God or spirit or whatever you want to call it, that really added this extra layer to the inner child work of like universal love and compassion that's actually available to all of us. That has been, again, that's that has, I continue to do this work. I like to say, I came here with a lot of bags and I'm still unpacking. I've been doing personal growth work for 30 years and there's still stuff to do. Triggers come up in relationship and, life is on. I'm older and I have kids and different things change. So there's always more layers to clear and heal and bring myself more into present time so that I'm not reacting from past unresolved stuff into the present. And so that's my kind of long. And so what I did, I wrote a book about, which is basically the 15 basic processes of my work so that people don't have to see me one-on-one therapy, that I can bring this work to a wider audience. And I'm hoping to do groups. I'm creating digital courses and out on social media to start to try to offer this work. Because you don't have to have a degree to be able to have love and compassion for yourself.
Yes.
Anybody can do it.
Yeah. It's tough, but it's funny because like I have a kind of like a different story, but in the same ways, because I had also a lot of anger, self-hatred for myself, and I went to do Ironman, and it was always like a battle. Like every Ironman for me was a war. Like it was a mental war where I was like fighting against myself. And I remember like I did an energy work that the lady said like you're gonna stop whenever you're ready to stop. And one day I found like I'm done. Like I'm done having this war. But that helped like figure out a lot of things that like it goes. But the inner child part of it started because I said like I'm gonna follow one of my dreams as a child, which was to be an athlete, and I didn't know that that was actually gonna like open like a huge package later in my life.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like now I was always kind of like against drugs. I smoked weed before, but like I went to the like I beat myself up with being an athlete. But when I moved to Colorado and I'd smoke, I was actually able to meditate and see my inner child wounded. And and then I started to, because I go to therapy, and I started to talk to my therapist this inner child relationship, and I started to understand like the root cause of my trauma and my major issues and why I was reacting with. Sometimes you react to stuff that you're like, why do I really need to react that way, right? Like, and then I started to do this inner child work, and that's when I started to like, oh my God, I started to figure it out. But it was with all the wrong things, rock and roll and weed, in a way that I understood my journey of the Ironman. Like it's kind of like in a weird way, but it matches a lot of the things that you went through, like, but in the opposite spectrum, I think. It's kind of.
So say more about rock and roll and Iron Man and how that connects within a child work for you.
Well, for me, it's like I train it a lot with music, and rock and roll was almost like I was kind of starting to get messages, like intuitively. And, depending on the song that will kind of click either the memory for me or click why I did this. Because like Iron Man for me, I was always trying to perform my best. And after the end of every race, I didn't know what happened that I didn't perform the way that I did on training. Because at training, I was like amazing, but when it came to the race, I couldn't do it. And so every time I did a race, I would train more and I would put more music, and the music and the repetition would make me start like, okay, what is the root? And then I would start questioning myself over and over again. So the solitude and the music and all of it was kind of like a component to start understanding my spirituality and start connecting with something greater than myself. And that started to kind of give me clues. And then once I finished like my career, like music came in together really like, okay, let's put the story together. But I was so afraid because I heard my entire life that was evil, that was, like that my music was bad and all of that. And when for me, it was actually helping healing myself.
Where did you get those messages?
Where? I don't know. Well, I in my last talk show, I actually said that I sometimes when I meditate, I'm a Reiki master. I became a Reiki master after my son was born. Mm-hmm. So I meditate a lot, and when I meditate, I have a lot of astral projection, I guess. That's what they told me it is. I don't understand much. And I saw Lemmy, I saw him many times in my meditations. And that's, I think, how I get those insights. I don't know. It's kind of like something is guiding me in a way.
Do you know what it is that's guiding you?
I don't know. Many people say God. I like to call the force of life. That's what I like to call. I call it the punk force.
one of the things that I like the idea that there are many myriad faces of God. That there are that in some ways almost everything in creation could be seen as an aspect of the divine, and they all could be portals for us as a way to connect, and that everybody has different kind of receptors that's unique to us in ways that we connect. And certainly like major religions are kind of like highways that make it easy for people, but I really feel like what's happening now as a species is that we're evolving, a lot of us, more into one-on-one and direct or mystical connection with God. Not like that didn't happen before, but to some people, but a lot of us have moved away from these kind of highways like Catholicism or Judaism, or not that there's, I've had practices from those that can be very helpful, but for a lot of people, a lot of traditions have an intercessor between us, whether it's a priest or even a rabbi or somebody in between us and God, and being able to have that conscious connection. And that can come in all kinds of different ways, right? And the thing about my work, which I call spiritual psychology, and what the first 5 chapters, each of the chapters of my book has a guided audio inner journey that goes with it, because it really is an experience, right? Like we can intellectually understand stuff, but it doesn't change anything. And it's actually having the experience, like for you, like actually, actually moving the body, listening to the music. There's a different thing happening in not intellectually, right? That's where the change happens, right? Is in our body.
It's in another dimension, basically, that is happening.
Exactly. And our body is one of the ways that we can get there. All of our senses are a way to get there. Some people are auditory, some people are visual, some people are kinesthetic, and moving your body or feeling. But so those are doorways. And in my work, using the principles of shamanism, which is probably the most ancient, and it also rhythm, which is really what's happening when you're listening to music too. A lot of it's the rhythm, right?
Yeah.
The thing that happens, it actually creates kind of an opening I know for myself, I have more access to my emotions when I listen to music than I do if I'm reading something.
Me too.
Looking at it, right? It opens up, they open up different doorways of ourselves. And so using sound, whether it's a rhythm of a drum or my voice, we can travel to these other dimensions or realms of consciousness that are available to all of us. They're all right here. It's just opening the door to them and really get to know how the universe, it's like a conversation. Like we can have a conversation with the universe, and there's what we want from God, and then there's what God wants from us, or there's what we want life force, and then there's what the life force wants from us. And to be able to have, whether it's through prayer or meditation or surfing, or there's a lot of your practices that connects you, and you can participate in that conversation. But in my work, the difference is working with what a lot of people call guides and teachers, or the nature spirits or elements or ancestors, is that there is a way that the divine, the life force, actually kind of takes form, and we can work with it even more consciously, directly. Like you said, Lenny shows up, right? Yeah. So like that might be like that you can have actually conversations with. You could ask questions there. You can get information that you didn't have access to with your regular conscious mind. You have access to more. It opens up the field, like flying in an airplane. You can see the bigger picture.
You know, it's so funny like that you say that, because like for me, everything started like pretty much like 2012. That's when I kind of felt like a big let's put it, awakening this way. And then I started researching for like, and last year was like completely insane. Like the feelings and like, I don't know, it was intense. It was very intense. So in a lot of my meditations, I, you know, like I see some sort of light that what I think it's like consciousness or whatever it is. So when that it's open, I remember like having conversation like, okay, you know, because I read in your book here about spiritual trauma, and then I'm like, okay, I can have this connection, but can I call it like a punk force or something like that, to not use the word God and stuff? So I was having conversations like that through my trauma, through my spiritual trauma. And like, I don't ever tell this to anybody because like I never really have conversations like this. I always wanted to, but I never had anybody that I felt comfortable with. But anyways, so it's kind of like, it makes sense to me because like I kind of like, okay, she felt like an activation or whatever you want to call it. I was like, yes, I'm having a conversation, but I was actually getting answers like intuitively. We're like, okay, I can use this. And that's how I actually started guiding my blog, you know, like the whole, everything I wrote in my blog, and even the ebook that I said that I wrote about Inner Child Revolution, like I wrote pure by intuition. That's why I put it free, because I was like, I don't know if anybody will ever wanted to read something like that, but I just really sat down with my heart and just put the words out there. And it's kind of crazy because you really do have that connection. And when I tell people I have connection with music, like it's almost like nobody believe it, because I don't know, it's just weird.
Oh, I don't think so. I think a lot of people connect that way. I think a lot of people.
Well, maybe they just don't say it, right?
Yeah, or maybe you haven't connected with the people who do that. I mean, I know people. I remember I know people who music has saved their life. You know, different musicians, different particular music that spoke to them at the time, that gave them hope or gave them energy or gave them power that they didn't have access to. Music is a very strong portal. And I mean, again, most ancient traditions, the idea using sound as again, a doorway to the infinite is very, very common, whether it's the sound Om or bells in a Catholic church, or, I mean, that like, the use of sound, the shamanic drum, it's pervasive in spiritual practice, and music is no different from that. And whatever, I mean, it's interesting. So like the punk or like, you know, death metal, things that people might project upon as negative are actually, for me, having taken what I call the shadow path, it was really through exploring my rage and my shame and my fuck you to the world attitude, like being able to make room for that, and what that was about on a deeper level. There's actually truth underneath those things. Those were responses, right, to the inequities or the lack of integrity, or, you know, I mean, there were kind of, some of it got twisted, but a lot of it was rooted in a deeper truth. And I think that a lot of music, particularly that people might scare them, or it might bring up things that feel dissonant for them, actually is an expression of a deeper truth. And truth is always a doorway. And again, where we live in a hall of doorways, right? And there's a different doorways for all different people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's funny because one of like some of the titles here really got my attention, because well, first thing you talk about depression, dissolving depression, which I think the only way I found out about, you know, healing really depression, it's with inner child work. Like I don't think I see any other way of doing it, but also like spiritual practice daily, creating a sacred space. Like this, I created like a whole sacred space in my house exactly for that. And little things that was just clicking in my head of like, what? Like I kind of went to the same route. It's so. I mean, I think it's so powerful, and I think he kind of proved something, I guess.
Right. Well, there's so the thing that I see over the last 30 years is there is this evolving experience happening of people finding in their own unique way this inner path of transformation, that it's not about changing the outside world to make us feel better inside. It's when we change the inside and go inside, then the outside changes to match. And that's a mystical path, right? That is a spiritual path, whatever you want to call it. And I don't even really like the word spiritual a lot of times because it's so overused and people have some idea what that means. It's really unique to each person. And that there's, it's almost like a phenomenon that this different way of healing ourselves, that's profound. I think it's part of our evolution. I really do. And what's happening now, which is really exciting, is that through social media and through this connectivity that we have, these things that we've found independently, now we're realizing lots of other people doing the same thing, and we can actually start to come together and share it with other people. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's funny because for me, it almost felt like a duty to put my book out with my story of doing that, because it's like, and it's such a weird thing, because it feels like a purpose, but like society is not really ready to have a lot of people talking about purpose, like in a way. So it's kind of like, I feel like it's the path, and like I need to share this.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it makes it a little scary because it's such a like it's such a deep thing to talk about it, and it's heavy. And I say it because like my family, they took a while reading my book and digesting everything that I said there, because like it has depth on it, and but it's like I said, it's like you never know how it's gonna hit people, and but I think we hit a moment that we need to talk about those things. Like we can no longer live without purpose, I think, in a way.
Right. Authentic purpose. And I think,
authentic purpose, yes.
Authentic purpose. And I think that particularly where we sit now, not post-COVID, but certainly, on the other side of the real lockdown piece of it, a lot of people have called into question the cultural norms that we were all kind of burdened by. And I think that the pandemic experience for a lot of people really brought up their dis-ease with how much they work and how busy they are, and how time they spend making money versus spending time with their kids or doing things they enjoy. And a lot of people have realized, like, wait a minute, this cultural thing that tells me I'm supposed to be a certain way doesn't actually make me happy. And what to go inside, like that's now, not everybody's ready to do that, and but a lot of people are, and that like yourself, I really felt like my responsibility is to bring my experience into the world, and wherever it resonates, whether it resonates with 10 people or 10,000 people, that's not up to me, right? But my job, because like I saw John Bradshaw on TV, like maybe someone will see this thing we're talking about right now, and they'll be like, oh, like it hits something. It hits
inside,
yeah, like they're ready to hear it. And so and we don't, and if people aren't ready to hear it, they're going to turn to the next channel, and that's something. No.
It's funny because like the ready to hear, it almost feels like for me, like sometimes that you're speaking in a vibration that the person is not ready for it. So it doesn't matter whatever you say, they're not gonna listen. They might listen, but it's not gonna touch them, just gonna pass it through because they are in a different vibration. But when the person is in the right vibration, it hits them like, and they're ready to listen to it. That's what it feels like it. But
well, I'm gonna say my experience, and there's actually some really great work around the idea of levels of consciousness. There's a guy, David Hawkins, who wrote a whole bunch of books about levels of consciousness. And the Abraham Hicks work, that's channeled material, they talk about levels of consciousness. I'm not sure, but the idea that our emotional states are like levels of resonance, starting with like guilt and shame and, hate and courage and hope and compassion and love, right? Like this range, right? And that our job is, our arc of evolution personally, and I think as a species, is actually to resonate up. And and that is, we don't have to, but and I think in a lot of this kind of work that other people about makes sense to me, because we are all connected, whether we're aware of it or not, in this kind of transpersonal field, that when we resonate at higher vibration, that we actually have a positive impact on those who are resonating at a lesser vibration, whether they're aware of it or not. Now, will it make them have a spiritual awakening? Maybe not. But I think that we do counterbalance, and our responsibility is to hold a high vibration and to call the other people up out of fear and hatred and shame and into courage, hope, and love, right? As opposed to energy matching down, which is a very easy thing to do. And I mean, because we all can kind of move up and down, but all other people up. And I think when we put out what's vulnerable, what's authentic, what's true, what's deep, it actually makes it safer and easier for other people to do the same thing.
Oh, I see. So that's why.
I mean, just like I heard. So you're a runner, right? So I was watching a thing, and they just broke. The guy just broke. Did he break the 4-minute mile? Somebody just broke. They just broke a record that no one thought it could be done. Is it the 4-minute mile? Is that right?
It might be. I did longer distance, so I'm not really. Okay. But I think, I don't remember what's the record, but. So one of the things, well, I've seen it happen in the athletics, like the X Games. So there's this kid, Travis Pastrana, who he did a backflip on a motorcycle. And no one thought, I love motorcycles. I love to go 100 miles an hour. I never did a flip, so he did a backflip on a motorcycle. No one they said it was impossible to do a backflip on a motorcycle. Once he did a backflip, but he could do a backflip. So a couple of years ago, Travis did a double backflip. No one believed you could ever do a double backflip on a motorcycle. He did a double backflip on a motorcycle. And you know what? Now everyone does a double backflip on a motorcycle. So there's a thing that happens that once we make something possible within ourselves and put it out in the world, it becomes possible for everyone. That's very interesting.
What do you think about that?
I absolutely think it's true, because I saw it happening in other things, and I coached triathletes for a long time, and I saw always, like, when a person started doing something positive inside of the house, the whole house changed. The whole house will change.
Yes.
Even if it's just a little bit,
Yes.
But it does change. It affects everybody. So doing something positive, it will, like, it makes total sense, because it kind of makes it, oh, yeah, if he can do it, I can do it too.
Yes.
Like, why not? And
Yes.
and that's how I always approach things in life. Like, when I remember one discussion when I went to become an athlete, one of the talks that I had when I was a kid was like, oh, I said I was going to be an athlete. And a lot of people said, like, oh, you can't do it because you're chubby. You're a chubby kid. And then, to break that stigma in my head and be able to actually run fast, it took me ages. It took me years of being like, okay, you know what? It is possible. Same thing with music. So, and that's why my whole channel is named A Child Revolution, because me learning the guitar, it's actually grabbing my inner child and say, like, hey, it's okay. You can do this. It's something good for you. And, it's almost like me being my own father, in a spiritual way.
So I'm going to tell you,
What?
I'm actually moved to do a little bit of inner child work. Would you be willing to do some inner child work and actually kind of show people what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. I will tell you, I have to stop 6, but I think we have just the right amount of time to actually give people an experience of what you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay. So
right.
We're not
going to make
go.
me cry. You're going to make me cry or what?
No, we're going to actually go. We're going to go to the best part of yourself.
The best part of myself. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's so we aren't going to do anything too traumatic. So, but just to give people, this is experiential and it's very visual. And to really give people a sense of what we're talking about. So take a minute and really come into your body.
Right. You must know I'm really fucked up. So.
Yeah, me too, buddy. We're good. So take a minute and just really come present and know that our body, mind, our spirit, our emotions are always available to us as doorways to deeper truth and healing and transformation. And so just taking a moment and opening inner senses, however you experience them, of sight and sound and taste and touch and smell and instinct and intuition, and safe to open those all quite widely as we take a journey inward to connect with your own authentic self, perhaps a child's part of yourself, your truest, deepest aspect of your own soul, who knows that he's connected, knows his own worth and value, and is aware of what he enjoys and what he has to bring into the world, whether you're aware of it or not. And I wonder if you can sense or feel or imagine that little boy who knows who he really is. And how old, child? And see if you can describe to us or talk to us what your experience.
I can see it clearly.
How old is he?
No, I see myself like I used to be as a kid, doing air guitar, sliding into the living room with my knees on the floor.
How old is that boy?
About 5 years old.
5 is a beautiful, magical age. And how does that boy feel?
He feels happy, free, joyful.
And so I wonder if you can sense or feel or imagine your own best adult self as you are today with all the work you've done and all the experience, stepping into the scene with that joyful little boy and making yourself known to him. I'm going to travel across historic and psychological time to connect with this joyful aspect of yourself. And we want to tell that little boy that we are here to connect with him. And they don't need to be alone anymore. That we want to bring him into present time, where he can be loved and cared for in the way he's always needed. And how is it for him to hear that?
It's good.
How do you feel about that boy?
Oh, I feel that he's in the right place now.
Mm-hmm. And how does he feel about you?
The way it's almost like you made it, man. You got out of that hell.
And so let's bring this boy out of this place in historic time. Tell him this happened a long time ago. He doesn't need to live here anymore. We want to bring him to a place that's beautiful and powerful, maybe even sacred. Perhaps a place in nature that has only his highest good in mind. And where would you bring him? Might be a place you've been before, might be new.
Yeah, to the Aquador Rock. It's a beach in Brazil. It's
is it day or night?
It's day, and it's right by this my first skate park that I ever been. The first bowl that I ever been. It's on the top of the mountain on that beach, so that's where I took that kid.
And so this is the spiritual aspect of this place. No one can come here without your permission. And this boy can do whatever he wants. He can explore. He can rest. He can make himself comfortable, play. What would he like to do here?
Skateboard.
And how does he feel as he skateboards in this place?
Free. Happy. Like it's almost like he has wings.
And we want to tell him that he is in present time now, and that this is an aspect of his true home. And he never has to go back to that place where he came from. In fact, he can't, because it doesn't exist anymore. It's in the past now. What does this little boy need?
What's this little boy what?
What does he need?
Love, attention.
And are you willing to give him the love and attention that he needs?
Yes.
And what's good about this boy?
He's creative, smart, fierce. I mean,
go ahead. And if you give him the love and attention that he needs, he's willing to share his intelligence and creativity and capacity with you.
Yeah.
How is it for him to hear that?
He feels free. He feels heard.
Mm-hmm.
It's like his voice is out.
Mm-hmm. And so
I actually feel a lot of like a lot of things in my throat. Like it's almost like liberating,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I also feel it in my third eye.
Mm-hmm. And so we want to let the little boy know that you are his healthy parent now. You're his healthy adult caregiver. And that you have created a life of authenticity, creativity, generosity that really has room for him. And why don't you show him your life today? Show him where you live, the spaces you've created. Show him that you are sharing him right now. Show him your family, the things you do, places you go, people, animals you spend time with. And we want to let him know that this is where he lives now. What does he think about this life that you've created?
He's very grateful.
Mm.
He's actually quite emotional right now.
Mm.
He feels safe.
And so when you're ready, hug him into your body. Welcome him home, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, sexually, socially, creatively, musically, familially, professional. That all areas of your life will be informed and transformed by connection with this creative, intelligent, and free aspect of your own soul. You might feel sensation as you integrate and welcome this part of your home, or you might not. And knowing that all areas of your life will be informed and transformed by this connection with your authentic self. And that you'll be able to easily and naturally care for and be aware of him. And that his life energy adds to your own. And you are more whole than you have ever been before. And take all the time you need. Let me know when that feels complete. And if you call that little boy into the room with you right now, where's that little boy in the room with you right now? Is he beside you? Inside you?
He's at the drum set right there.
And how's he feeling to be at the drum set?
Very good.
And so again, we want to tell him he doesn't ever have to go back to that place. In fact, where he lives now.
Oh.
And that he is valuable to you.
Wow.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
That was some work. Woo.
Beautiful.
Wow. That was very powerful.
Inner child work is very powerful.
Woo.
Changes us on a soul level.
Wow, it's impressive. Very impressive.
But it's available to all of us.
Yeah.
It's right there, like you saw. It's right there, right?
You can feel it, like you can really feel it.
No, there's no magic. There's no magic powder. There's no voodoo spells. You just come into your body and it's right there. It's available to all of us if we're willing to go inside and So beautiful. Thank you. I'm so grateful that you're willing to be so open and vulnerable and share your experience with the world.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful service.
It's my pleasure, honestly. And, I hope, I got to devour your book. And I hope people read my book and read your book too, because it's such a, we have such a potential to make a whole different world right now. Like you said, I think COVID brought everybody an existential crisis that made them think. Some people chose not to think because I know it's hard. It's a very hard thing because I've been dealing with it for a while now, and not anymore, because I really do feel so much better after that. But it's like, I think we have a potential to really have a meaningful new world.
Absolutely. Well, so like the serendipity or the intuition that brought us together on Instagram, the people that need to find this work, they find it, right? Yeah. And everybody is out where they're at, and it's all fine. We're all at different places, and it's all part of the system. But
as long as you're moving forward, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's what I did on every Ironman. As long as you're moving forward, you'll be good. Right. There's no right or wrong. The only right thing to do is to move forward, I guess. So.
That's it. That's it. And we don't have to move forward alone. And I'm so glad to get to meet you and speak with you tonight. It's really beautiful.
It's my pleasure. I appreciate you taking your time to join my show and to do this work here. And it's funny. The funny thing is, right before I came in here, I said, be ready, because she's going to probably ask you to do an experience. And I just knew it. And I was like, I was kind of ready. And when you said it, like, okay, I knew it. So let's do it.
You were ready.
So thank you. I really appreciate that.
It's a beautiful service to show people what's possible. And you're doing that in all these different areas. So blessings on your work. And let's stay in touch.
Thank you. Let's stay in touch. I would probably can have another one after I finish reading.
Perfect. I would love that. That would be great.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Love to you. We'll talk again.
Love to you. Punkaste.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye. Thank you.